John Donne's No Man is an Island is not a poem. It's part of a prose meditation from his Devotions upon Emergent Occasions, Meditation 17. He wrote it in 1624 when he was seriously ill. This famous passage from that work begins and ends with two of the most well-known phrases in English literature. Here's that famous passage. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. The main theme of this piece is the interconnectedness of humanity. In it, Donne argues that no individual exists in isolation. Rather, each person is a part of the larger whole of humanity. As he frequently does, Donne uses an extended metaphor to make his point. In this case, it's a metaphor involving land masses. The idea is that every person is akin to a piece of continent, significantly linked to others. The opening line, no man is an island entire of itself, encapsulates the essence of this argument. We are not just ourselves. We are part of a greater humanity, like an island is a part of a continent. That's what he means when he says that every man is a piece of the continent, part of the main. And then we have this line, if a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or thine own were. Let's break this down. A clod is a small clump of earth or clay, and the claiming of a clod by the sea represents the death of an individual person. This is likely somebody that you wouldn't know. But still, Europe is the less. The continent, representing humanity as a whole, is diminished by this loss, no matter how small it is. The continent is as diminished by that clod as it would be if it lost an entire promontory. A promontory is a point of land jutting out into the sea. It's a lot bigger than a clod. In Donne's extended metaphor, this represents a more prominent or important person. The loss of the clod and the loss of the promontory is the same thing as if your friend lost his manor, or even if your own large estate went collapsing into the ocean. The key point that Donne is making with all this is that the loss of any human life, regardless of their perceived importance or their closeness to us, diminishes humanity as a whole, whether it's an ordinary person or a prominent figure, or someone that's really close and dear to us. The loss affects everybody. This sentiment is poignantly captured in the line, any man's death diminishes me, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. I just want to make note of the poetic device here. Donne uses the word tolls twice, and this creates a rhythmic effect that mimics the sounding of a bell, reinforcing the imagery. I think that's cool. In Donne's time, church bells would toll to announce a death in the community. The number of rings would indicate the age and status of the deceased. If you didn't know who it was, you could send somebody to find out. So the idea here is that anytime you hear that bell, you don't need to send someone. You already know. It's ringing for you. In a sense, it's ringing for all of us. And if we think of it that way, it should remind us of our interconnectedness with the rest of humanity, our shared mortality. In our culture, we no longer hear bells of mourning, but we do hear about the deaths of celebrities on social media, and we hear about other deaths in conversations with our friends. Each time we hear of someone's passing, Donne would have us experience it as a loss, because a part of us has died too. In our day, we are very aware of the broad chasms that divide us. We are guilty of island thinking. We would do well to consider the wise words of John Donne. He was an incredible preacher who wrote these words when he believed he was soon to die. So these words are the meditations of a very spiritual and godly man when his priorities and perspectives have become crystal clear, and he tells us this message: we are all a part of each other. I can't say it any better than John Donne, so I'm not even going to try to preach a sermon that will get people to treat each other better. Although if I did, I would reference Genesis 1 verse 26 to 27, and I would talk about how all human beings are created in the image of God. And I would also bring up the Levitical command to love thy neighbor as thyself, and I would point out how Jesus said that this one was one of the top 2 commandments in the law of God. But I won't preach that sermon. But let's not forget Donne's main point. If you're human, you belong to every other human on the planet. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.